In this video, I'll be making an 18th century stay. It's not going to be historically accurate, I'm not going to be hand sewing it, and the grommets are definitely going to be metal. So, come along for the ride or don't. And don't at me for it. I don't have the time! So in front of me I have a little printed out booklet. I got it from Custom Corset Pattern Generator. I've linked it in the description below. Okay, so you're going to want to put your measurements into this generator. For your waist measurement, you're going to want to make it 2 to 5 inches smaller than what your waist measurement actually is. You're doing this so that your corset is smaller. That way you have room to tighten it. Now that you have your little booklet printed out after you put in your measurements and generated it, feel free to slow down this part of the video and follow along with what I'm doing. Your booklet will have step-by-step instructions, so I'm not going to read my booklet to you because yours will be slightly different than mine. So just follow along. Now that you have all the dots down and you've drawn the general shape of stay you'd like to have, you're going to want to cut it out. Make sure that you take this pattern block and transfer it onto a piece of fabric that isn't your final product. You're going to want to make sure that it fits right. So a smart thing to do is to take the front of your stay pattern that you've made and place the pattern on the fold of the fabric, so that instead of getting two pieces that you have to sew together in the middle, you just have it already connected. I don't know why I didn't do it that way. I didn't do it for the final project either, but it's probably way easier than what I'm doing here. You're way more likely to have like a symmetrical piece of fabric. Do not follow what I did, or follow what I did, it doesn't really matter, but it's probably easier not to. Okay, so now I checked that out on myself. It fit well. We're good to go. So if you're doing it this way and not cutting it on the fold like I recommend, you're going to need 4 pieces. 2 of your main fabric and 2 for your backing, because you're going to want to hide the boning. I use the same fabric for front and back. It's up to you. You can do it however you want to do it. Doesn't matter. You could use your practice piece for the backing if you want. So most stays that I've seen have these little scalloped edges that are all sticky outy and weird. And I decided I want some of those on mine. Now I added a lot of them, and I wouldn't recommend that. I'd recommend adding less with more space in between, because when you go to put bias tape on these, you're gonna wish you didn't exist anymore. So if you have these scalloped edges, I wouldn't even recommend using bias tape. It's very difficult to wrap them around those tight edges like that. So next time I make one, what I'm going to do is sew it so that the bottom are wrong sides together, and then flip it right side out and only put bias tape along the edges. It'll be way easier. Now do the same for the other side of your stay. Same scallops, just place it on top and trace it. And also at this beautiful moment, I realized that my fabric pattern was upside down. It looks fine, but however, like if you're doing your own pattern with your material like this, pay attention to the direction the pattern is actually going. Don't do what I did here and have an upside down rhino. At this point, when I was becoming frustrated, the local terrorist decided to stop by and take a visit, you know, see if any machines needed unthreading, if any needles needed to be eaten, keep me on my tippy toes. Now grab your two front pieces, place them right sides together, and sew them down the middle. Do this for your lining material as well. If you cut your pieces on the fold, you don't need to do this. No worries. You're smarter than me. Okay, so now take the front and back and place them wrong sides together and start drawing lots of lines. A line for every year you've been alive plus 10. That's the actual math they use to make stays in the 18th century. Just so you know, a little piece of history for you. After you've drawn, 6 lines across the front, you're going to want to start sewing line after line after line. It's going to be monotonous, and yeah, just keep going. Also, for the direction of the lines, I don't know how to explain this, but you want it so that it's like slimming. It's going to like structure your waist the way you would want it to be structured. It's going to force your ribs in places they don't want to be. So you're going to want to angle them that way, however you feel is necessary. I use Google Images. It showed me how best to torture my body and make it look the way I thought it should look. So just Google it. You'll find it. Monotonous. Monotonous. I can't say it. I don't know why I need to use it, but I can't say it. You should cut your zip ties like quite a bit shorter than your seam allowance. Your sewing machine will not like going through a zip tie. It might go through it, or it might break. You don't know. It's best not to test it. Also, consider filing down the edges, because zip ties are sharp and they might stab through your material over time. I have never done it, but all the videos I've watched have recommended it. So take that as you will. Now draw more lines. Make sure that you pick a pencil that's blue, if your material is blue, so that it's hard to see the lines, because we want to be challenged and nothing should be easy. So do it. Okay, so here's the truly horrible part. I used bias tape instead of just sewing around the edges and flipping it right side out and leaving the top open to slip the zip ties in, and then just using bias tape along the top, which would have been way easier than using bias tape around every edge. So if you're gonna do this, be prepared. I started out by pinning all the bias tape on. I soon realized that pinning it on was kind of like annoying, so I just kind of held it along the edge and sewed as I went, which worked really well. You don't need to pin it if you don't want to. This is the part that you've been dreading because I've told you to dread it. It is nearly impossible to wrap this around the edges nicely. I found it very difficult to make it look nice. My only suggestion is put less scallops, or do it as I've explained before and just sew them before you do any of the lines. Right sides together, sew along the bottom and the edge scallops. Sorry, the bottom scallops and the edge. You know what I mean. And then flip it right side out, leaving the top open. That is the best possible way to do this. Or you can do it the way I did there. Up to you. Now, grab some rectangles. They don't have to be perfect size because you're going to tie them to your stay with ribbon. So they can be a little bit too small. Preferably they are too small. And you're going to want to draw them into like really long ovals. And then sew all along the edges and leave about an inch gap so you can flip them right side out. Now you should have 2 shoulder straps, roughly the same size. And once you have them flipped out, iron them flat, and then sew along the edges, like I had shown you with my finger there, but I didn't actually show you me sewing them. But you know what I mean. So now you're going to want to get your grommets. Or, if you want to be historically accurate, you can cut the little circle holes and just use embroidery thread to line the edges. Or you can just put the grommets in and leave them, or you can put embroidery thread around the metal grommets to hide them. And then it looks like you did it historically accurate, even though you didn't. Life hack. Make sure you don't cut the hole too big because it just will mess up the strap, so don't do that. You want it smaller and then force the grommet through, and then grab your hammer and hammer it like a lot until it's really secure. That's actually my sewing hammer. I keep it in my sewing drawer because it's small and kind of cute. So get yourself a sewing hammer. Now take your straps over to your stay. It doesn't have to be on a mannequin. You just want to, see and gauge where you want the grommets to be on the stay itself so that it will sit nicely on your body. So that's what I'm doing here. That's why my chin is pushed into my neck, because when I think and sew, I have to make sure I have a double chin. Always. It's important. It's my thinking face. That's when you know I'm serious. And now, my friends, it's time to go back, because it is, you guessed it, hammer time. Hammer those grommets in, front and back, wherever you think the placement works best. 4 pieces of ribbon for your straps and 1 really long piece for the back of your stay. You'll want to be able to wrap it around yourself a bit to secure it. And then just put some fray stop on the ends to prevent any fray in the ribbon. Wow! All I need now is a chemise, and I actually made one, so keep an eye out for that video. Also, I cut my hair and add bangs now because, you know, things happen during Corona.